Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. Praise be to God. It is Friday. You have survived the week thus far. Congratulations. Just imagine what you get after this weekend. That honey-do list is waiting for you at home. You're going to enjoy it. But before you do, let's talk about the Ralph Martin story. It was pretty shocking when we heard yesterday that Ralph Martin was fired after 23 years at his job at the seminary there in the Archdiocese of Detroit. I've interviewed Ralph Martin on a number of occasions right here on this show, on this channel. And boy, oh boy, the man has served the mainstream church for so long. He's not on any fringe whatsoever. But because he said the quiet part out loud in the Francis pontificate, he is being punished. We'll talk about that today with Dr. Anthony Stine. It is Fridays with Stine. He's on the show at 30 past the hour. Also on the team today is going to be Michael Haynes from Primarium. By the way, he's got a brand new YouTube channel. You should check it out. He interviewed Archbishop Cordileone about the traditional Latin Mass and about this effort that Cordileone is fostering to bring about a reverence in liturgy, Novus Ordo, TLM, or otherwise. But it was something that the Archbishop said that caught my attention. He thinks that the resistance to tradition and orthodoxy will die with his generation. I found that very, very fascinating. We'll talk to him about that, as well as about Syria. It seems like Syria is about to become the next Nigeria, in that the government will turn its cheek, turn its back upon the slaughter of Christians there. So we'll have Michael Haynes on the team at 14 past the hour. We'll put links to everything we discussed today in the show notes over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. But we'd be grateful if you'd share us with a friend. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And now your saint of the day.
Saint James the Greater, pray for us. James was a fisherman, a son of Saints Zebedee and Salome, and brother, likely the elder, to Saint John the Evangelist. Together they were known as the Sons of Thunder. James is called the Greater, or the More, to distinguish him from the other Apostle James, known as the Lesser because he followed Christ later, and may also have been shorter in stature. James the Greater was one of the 3 apostles chosen to accompany our Lord at his transfiguration and his agony in the garden. After Pentecost, James evangelized as far abroad as Spain before returning to the Holy Land. There James died by the sword, the first of the apostles to be martyred for Christ. He converted his own accuser, who then accompanied James in martyrdom. James's relics were eventually translated to Compostela in Spain, where they are the culmination of the great pilgrimage known as the Camino de Santiago. Many centuries after his death, James appeared in the sky to lead Spanish forces against Muslim invaders during the Reconquista, hence his Spanish title, Matamoros, or Moor Slayer. Among other causes, he is a patron of horsemen, veterinarians, pharmacists, and those suffering from arthritis. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints-and-seasons. St. James the Greater, pray for us.
And now your headline news. The Blaze reports U.S. nuclear weapons program hacked by foreign agents. Foreign agents were able to penetrate the systems of the National Nuclear Security Administration. The Energy Department revealed in an email that an exploitation of a Microsoft SharePoint zero-day vulnerability began affecting the Department of Energy on Friday, July the 18th. While the government entity did not expose information about the source of the intrusion, Microsoft revealed on its own blog that it had identified multiple hostiles working on behalf of a foreign entity, including 3 Chinese nation-state actors. Ground News reports WWE legend Hulk Hogan dead at 71. WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan died yesterday at his Clearwater Beach residence. Medics were dispatched early in the morning to his Florida home, and operators stated it was regarding a cardiac arrest before he was loaded onto an ambulance. Hogan's family confirmed his death and stated he had previously been recovering from neck surgery, although rumors of him being in a coma had been denied. Catholic Vote reports new details emerge of FBI surveillance of Catholics. The House Judiciary Committee released a report July the 22nd, revealing that the Biden-era FBI devoted far more federal law enforcement resources to surveilling Catholics than previously known, while failing to disclose the full extent of its operations to Congress. And those are your headline news. The gospel today comes to us from Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 through 28. Then came to him the mother of the sons of Zebedee with her sons, adoring and asking something of him, who said to her, What wilt thou? She saith to him, Say that these my 2 sons may sit, the one on thy right hand, and the other on thy left, in thy kingdom. And Jesus answering said, You know not what you ask. Can you drink the chalice that I shall drink? They said to him, We can. He saith to them, My chalice indeed you shall drink, but to sit on my right or my left hand is not mine to give to you, but to them for whom it is prepared by my Father. And the 10 hearing it were moved with indignation against the 2 brethren. But Jesus called them to him and said, You know that the princes of the Gentiles lord it over them, and they that are the greater exercise power upon them. It shall not be so among you, but whoever will be the greater among you, let him be your minister. And he that will be first among you shall be your servant. Even as the Son of Man is not come to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a redemption for many. The Gospel of the Lord. Laus tibi Christi. Taking the commentary today from Father McKeebley, writing back in the 19th century, he says, St. Mark in chapter 10, verse 35 says that it was John and James themselves that addressed him in very general terms, asking him to grant whatsoever they would desire. However, there is no contradiction, for they may be said to have asked themselves what they employed their mother to ask on their behalf. It is likely that they availed themselves of their mother's good offices in this matter, thinking it might be the most successful way of obtaining their request. I think this is a key point, especially if you're not Catholic and you don't understand why we Catholics give so much to the Blessed Virgin Mary, because she is the Gibirah. She intercedes on behalf of the people before her Son, who is the King. And the mother of these 2 men, James and John, is basically doing the same thing. It's our best chance at getting this request granted is sending the mother to do the asking. Father McKeebley goes on, and if there was anything if there was anything indelicate in it, the mother's love and partiality for her children would render it more excusable. And the claims of the mother, on the grounds of her having been among the pious females who attached themselves to our Lord, they imagined to be such as to render her a most successful intercessor. Some even say she had claims on. I'll just skip that part. It goes on. It is disputed whether it was worldly preeminence in his earthly kingdom or spiritual preeminence in his heavenly and eternal kingdom they had in view. The opinion of St. Chrysostom, who maintains the former view, seems the more probable. Our Redeemer's answer, which would seem to refer to his heavenly kingdom, is perfectly reconcilable with this, for he turns the subject from earthly to heavenly and spiritual preeminence. The words in St. Mark chapter 10, in thy glory may be understood of the glory of his temporal kingdom, which alone they seemed at the same time to appreciate. Our Redeemer, with his usual meekness, excuses the carnal and inordinate ambition of his two apostles on the ground of ignorance, addressing themselves directly, since he knew their mother and had spoken at their insistence. He says, you know not what you ask, on several grounds. First, because they mistook the nature of the kingdom in which they sought preeminence. They took the kingdom of our Lord for an earthly, temporal kingdom. Again, they imagine themselves fit for it with their present dispositions, whereas they should become other men in order to be fit for it. Moreover, they mistook the means for gaining preeminence. They imagined that our Redeemer could bestow it on whom he pleased, on the grounds of friendship or preference, as happens in earthly kingdoms, without any regard to merit. The princes of the Gentiles, who know not God, and unlike the princes among the Jews, confined by the law of God within certain bounds, are governed by no law save their own capricious wills. Our Lord's kingdom is not like the kingdoms of this world. Let us pray, fast, and do penance for that kingdom. There are lots of stories in the news that are of great concern to us. Syria is one of those. There's an article over at permiriam.com. We'll put a link to it in the show notes today. The headline says, Syrian bishop, Syria is at its end, and church only reference for hope. Joining us now to talk about it is Michael Haynes from permiriam.com. Michael, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Joe. Good to be with you.
So what is the situation in Syria right now?
Well, we've seen in the recent months, the new Islamic governments have been trying to essentially curry favor with international governments. But at the same time, the persecution of Christians, also the persecution of other minority groups, has continued somewhat quietly. And I think there's what appears to be a silence on the part of governments who are still trying to liaise with this new Syrian regime, because it seems perhaps nobody wants to call out persecution, perhaps for the risk of running out of favor with the governments that they're trying to get in with at the moment. But what we have seen a number of advocacy groups mentioning and reporting and giving evidence of. We've now seen this Archbishop reporting here that this persecution is very much continuing on the ground, and for Christians that it's very much forgotten. Also, the church is really the only hope for them, and the country as a whole is sadly being destroyed. It seems, according to his testimony, it seems it's being destroyed from within, including by actions maybe sponsored by the state government, or maybe not officially sponsored but linked to the state government. So it seems an incredibly messy situation, which is being the price of which is being mainly paid by Christians, by other minority groups who are suffering at the hands of the Islamic groups there.
It sounded to me when I went through your article that Syria could be the next Nigeria, in the sense that the persecution of Christians in Nigeria happens and the government sort of turns a blind eye. So it sounds like it's the same routine in Syria.
That's right. We've seen, if you read any of the annual reports from organizations like, say, Aid to the Church in Need, Nigeria is always one of the most concerning countries. I think Nigeria saw the largest number of Christians killed for their faith in the most recent reports out of any other country. It seems perhaps with Syria that there might be a slight difference in that there are just so many Christians leaving the country that this is something that other organizations have documented, that the Christian population is just dramatically diminishing. So it seems that perhaps there might be a slight difference. There might not be as much a high number of persecutions or killings of Christians purely because there aren't actually many Christians left.
Okay, so the next question in my mind is, what about the international outcry for this? In the article, you say in recent weeks, a new report from the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom documented the daily reality for Christians and Muslims in Syria after the new regime took power. The report warns that both religious freedom conditions in Syria and related U.S. foreign policy, including President Donald Trump's May announcement to lift sanctions on Syria, remains subject to rapid change. So is the world going to take an interest here and do something? I mean, we have reports on going back to Nigeria. We have reports all the time on persecution in Nigeria, but the world doesn't really do anything about that. My biggest question is, will the world do something in this case? Because Israel seems so interested in what's happening in Syria, threatening to invade. They've already bombed the headquarters there. They're taking interest because of the Druze. Will that escalate this issue at an international scale?
It's, at least from my perspective, it seems hard to judge. Perhaps others with better expertise might have a different opinion, but we've seen time and again that, for instance, the commission you mentioned, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, they've made calls to the U.S. government on a number of occasions asking for different nations to be documented as countries of particular concern due to the persecution there. And it seems quite often that those calls are largely left by the wayside and not actually taken up. So, particularly at the moment when we've seen this Syrian government, who previously were designated as Islamic terrorists, and now we're seeing them being welcomed by politicians and leaders of Western nations. It seems, I think, unlikely that there's going to be an immediate condemnation of this Christian persecution, because that would perhaps damage the relationship that Western governments are trying to build. Like much in the Middle East, it seems even that the bishop here and the papal nuncio have described, it seems that it's often changing, and it's very hard to predict exactly what's going to happen down the line. I mean, just a few months ago, the papal nuncio was saying that, well, it's actually possibly a good situation with the Christians now with this government. The government's committed to trying to ensure peaceful coexistence. Now the Archbishop, who we've mentioned in this report, is really saying that the situation looks to be quite the opposite. It's the country is self-imploding. The government is, whether directly or indirectly, but the government is behind these attacks. So, to be honest, I think from my perspective, it's very hard to predict any longer term future at this stage.
It's a tragedy on more than one level. Some of the oldest archaeological finds of churches, Christian churches in the history of the world, are found there in Syria. And beautiful finds, baptismal fonts, not full immersion fonts, but baptismal fonts that are more similar to what you might experience today, going back to the earliest days of the church, found there in Syria. So the church in Syria is ancient, and it is under attack, and we have to keep a close eye on what's going on there and pray for God's relief. But I do want to switch to your conversation with Archbishop Cordileone. In fact, you have a brand new YouTube channel. Congratulations, by the way, on that. I want to tell everybody to make sure to subscribe to it. We'll put a link to it in the show notes today. I want to play this clip because I found this to be the most fascinating part of your conversation. Have a listen to this.
The immediate danger would be people going to break off communities, or just feeling dejected and stop going to church altogether. That would be an immediate danger, but I think it's not going to last, because I'm the last of the generation that has this before and after Vatican II mentality. It was just inculcated in us by the culture in the church at the time. The generations after mine don't have that. They don't have I don't see anyone who's young or even middle-aged with this animus against the traditional Mass.
I find this incredibly fascinating. So Archbishop Cordileone has been sort of spearheading the effort to bring back something more intentional, beautiful to liturgies. No, I mean, he's not just talking about traditional Latin Masses, but even the Novus Ordo with his institute. Tell me about your conversation, but I want to follow up on what he just said.
Yes, absolutely. So this was a conversation that came on the back of some comments that the Archbishop made online in May when he was supporting Cardinal Go in basically advocating for the traditional Mass to be permitted freedom, if you like, which I thought was very interesting timing. We'd had the election of Pope Leo just a week or two before, and so it seemed that there was a resurgence of conservative voices, leading prelates. You have a cardinal, a very well-known archbishop, making this argument, really trying to make that voice heard in this very early stage of Pope Leo's pontificate. And the recurring theme that the archbishop did also highlight, as he mentions in that clip there, is that there is this innate attraction which young people have for the traditional Mass, with the beauty of the traditional Mass, with the reverence. I mean, this is nothing new to devotees of the traditional Mass, but it's something which he's become very aware of and is being keen to highlight. And as you say, it's something also that he's tried to inculcate in his own celebrations of liturgy, whether that be the traditional Mass or whether that be the Novus Ordo, to try and have an increase in reverence. It's also interesting. He mentioned that this generation who feels that there is a before and after Vatican II, because earlier in the conversation he pointed to something. He used the words a mania or a frenzy that the Church had to essentially catch up with the world and institute a whole load of changes in order to be somehow more appealing, somehow more in tune. And I think, as again, many others have pointed out, this is something that's evidently done nothing positive really for the Church, because we've seen people fall away from practice of the faith or from understanding of the faith, getting back to that timelessness, which it seems is now finding a new fan club, if you like, for want of a better word, amongst young people. That's really a positive aid to evangelization.
I thought it was fascinating that he said that he basically said his generation was the last dying effort, the death throes of the revolt against what is good, true, and beautiful in the history and tradition of the Church, within the Church. I mean, does he really feel like the next generation is not resistant to tradition and beauty and grandeur and orthodoxy?
It's interesting. It is a strong claim. It's not unsupported, I think, although it's something, for instance, which Cardinal Burke's mentioned in a number of interventions that he's given, that during his travels, he would be very encouraged by firstly, the size of congregations at the traditional Mass and the demographics, highlighting especially the young people. I don't think we're immediately in a position where we're suddenly going to overnight see the traditional Mass suddenly blossom and overtake, say, the Novus Ordo in a night. I think that sort of scenario is a long way away, but there's certainly much more of a vibrancy, and I think there's a more sustainable growth at the congregations which one would see at the traditional Mass, as opposed to, say, your regular Novus Ordo.
He also talked about those that had take issue with the Vatican II Council. And he sort of created these classifications to try to better understand where people are in regards to Vatican II. And he makes clear distinctions there, acknowledging that there were no dogmatic, declarations out of Vatican II. I found that very fascinating, and also very giving to those that would take issue with Vatican II, right?
Indeed. It's obviously a hugely controversial topic and has been for a number of years. But that also struck me, the fact that he was essentially acknowledging the controversy around that, whereas many others refused to even permit the acknowledgement of such a controversy. They refused to allow any discussion about issues which have emerged since the council, which were in the council. So the fact that he is looking to engage somewhat with that debate, I think is interesting, at least, because that's very, very central to the entire liturgy debate, particularly to the traditional Mass.
Great conversation with Archbishop Cordileone. Brand new YouTube channel. Glad to see you've started that. Praise be to Jesus. Asking everybody to subscribe to his channel. We're going to link to it in the show notes today over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. But you can find it also linked up at permiriam.com. We're going to link to that as well. Michael Haynes, always great to have you on the team. God bless you, my friend. Thank you for joining us today. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean, and here are your headline news. The Hill reports Graham and Cronin call for special counsel in Obama case. A pair of top Senate Republicans called yesterday for a special counsel to be appointed to probe whether former President Barack Obama aided an effort to undermine President Trump's 2016 White House bid. Senators Lindsey Graham and John Cronin said they want answers about how Obama and his administration manipulated matters. Newsmax reports 4-day work week benefits workers and employers. A new global study found that workers at companies that instituted a 4-day work week, essentially working 80% of their regular hours for the same pay, reported less burnout and better job satisfaction, along with improved mental and physical health, compared with employees at companies that stuck to a 5-day schedule, researchers said. Well, now look at 6-day work week. I think that might be better. But anyway, National Catholic Register reports Vatican court dismisses Melone's appeal in wrongful termination case. The Vatican City's Court of Appeal dismissed Libero Melone's wrongful dismissal lawsuit against the Vatican Secretary of State, ruling that his compensation claim for being ousted in 2017 after uncovering financial misconduct was groundless. Melone, the Vatican's first Auditor General, vows to continue his legal fight to restore his and his late deputy's professional reputation. And those are your headline news. Joining us this morning is Dr. Anthony Stine from Return to Tradition. It's Fridays with Stine. Good morning to you, Dr. Stine. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you this morning?
Praise be to God. It's Friday. We are alive. That counts. God is good. But let's talk about this breaking news story from yesterday, which was Dr. Ralph Martin and Dr. Eduardo Echeverria. I don't know how to say his last name correctly. But anyway, these two were fired from the Sacred Heart Seminary in Detroit. Dr. Ralph Martin's been on my program a few times. He's been around forever. He's a mainstream of the charismatic movement, of the mainstream Catholic Church. What in the world is going on here?
Well, it's Detroit. Detroit has been in the news for no good reasons several times in the last almost 5 months since Archbishop Weissenberger has become the ordinary. Reportedly, according to what statements they could get from Dr. Martin and maybe from Echeverria, I'm not sure on the latter. They believe, though, that they were terminated because they opposed the sort of the new teachings on the church, on marriage, that they spoke against Amoris Laetitia, and they basically said things about Pope Francis that were risky to say if you have a position of any kind of official, like an official position in any kind of institution in the church, in a seminary especially. They said that Francis was promoting ambiguity and underlining Catholic moral teaching. And the only thing I could think of when I saw that story was, it's amazing how those who actually undermine Catholic moral teaching are able to do book tours and speaking tours without punishment. Maybe a canceled thing here and there. James Martin gets canceled periodically from giving a speech somewhere. But you ever notice that it's always those who defend the traditional teachings of the church who get in trouble? It's almost never the other way around. And it really does, for whatever reason, look like that certain bishops are free to silence voices, and they think they'll get away with it for whatever their reason is. And the outcry from this last night was huge. I mean, it was instantly viral when they canceled one of the more popular EWTN hosts, because Ralph Martin is on EWTN. Do you remember what the name of his show is, Joe? But he's on EWTN, which is, I know, news to some people in Rome. EWTN is not a radical outlet by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, not even
it's
close,
very, yeah, very mainstream. This isn't, as if you gave I don't know, some set of a contest, a show on EWTN or something. It's not like that. This is as mainstream in the church as it gets. The problem is when you defend the church's teaching on morality. In the aftermath of Fiducia Supplicans, how many people are not Fiducia Supplicans, Amoris Laetitia? I often get the two confused, but how often did we see after Amoris Laetitia, people get canceled from Catholic Answers and from a whole host of other organizations? There were public speakers whose careers were over because they chose to point out the problems with that document. And here we are years later, almost a decade later, and you can add Ralph Martin's name to the list from the looks of it, because he said there's the ambiguity in these things is dangerous and leads people astray. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's shocking, actually. This is the response that Dr. Ralph Martin sent to the email list of the Renewal Ministries yesterday. He says, after consulting with the Renewal Ministries chairman of the board, Deacon Dan Foley, Executive Vice President Peter Herbeck, and Vice President Pete Brock, I have decided to release the best explanation I have regarding my recent termination from Sacred Heart Major Seminary. My decision to share this is based on widespread dissemination of the news since my firing and that of my fellow professor, and my belief that our colleagues, friends, and supporters deserve an explanation. Yesterday, Archbishop Weisenberger told me that he was terminating my position at the seminary effective immediately. When I asked him for an explanation, he said he didn't think it would be helpful to give any specifics, but mentioned something about having concerns about my theological perspectives. How can you fire somebody and not give specifics and then not expect to be sued over that? Like, you're firing me, but you're not going to tell me why?
It's a matter of justice. And this is what I said in my live stream this morning. I started this subject by talking about how the Catholic blog Mesa and Latino, one of the biggest independent news sites in Europe, focusing on the church in Italy and Europe more broadly, they got Traditionis Custodes news well before anybody else did, and on a bunch of other issues too. And their blog was shut down by Google for a hate speech violation with no reason given. And as people who are on YouTube, Joe, you and I know that when you or I violate some rule and a video gets demonetized, they don't really tell you why. They don't tell you what you did. They don't tell you how to fix it. They just tell you, oh, you broke this rule, and now you can appeal it, but you don't know what you did. It's a form of censorship, and this is the same kind of thing we see here. It's a matter of justice to be told what it is you did wrong when you violate a rule or a cultural norm and how to fix it. But unfortunately, it looks like he was fired at without even warning. He said, if you read his account of this, it looks like it just came out of the blue. He was shocked. Just got to work one day and was told he didn't have a job anymore. Normally, in a normal workplace, there's a kind of a process where management, or if you're, I would imagine in a seminary, maybe just working with the seminary president directly or with the bishop, there would have been a meeting as part of a normal bit of due process for a workplace where you're called and say, look, there's a problem here and we need you to fix it or walk away. Here's how you can go about fixing it. And we'll put you on probation to see if you fixed it. That is the normal way these things are done. If you've ever had a normal job and lost a normal job, you know that these things rarely happen. You rarely terminate it on the spot unless you really messed up. Unless you did something really egregious. Now, the counter argument is, well, he criticized Pope Francis. You can't criticize the Roman pontiff. It's firing on the spot because as Catholics, you're not supposed to do that. That could be the counter argument. But again, what was he doing? He defended the church's teaching on marriage.
Yeah, he did that right here on the show. The last time we had him on, we were talking about all of the issues coming out of Fernandez and the Vatican and how he was saying the quiet part out loud. You and I talk about this stuff all the time. Like, we're kind of in that category of people who criticize these controversial issues. Ralph Martin was never that guy. He spent his career in the mainstream Catholic faith. He was a big part of the charismatic renewal movement within the Catholic Church. His books have been widely read all over the world by Catholics. And for him to say the quiet part out loud, that was what was the most inspiring to me. Like, people in his category do not rock the boat by definition. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the fact that he said that was like, wow, if Ralph Martin is saying it, you've got big issues. There's big problems if he's the guy talking about it. And hats off to him, Mike. I was really inspired by his courage. But now, with the Archbishop punishing him after Francis is gone, God rest his soul, and especially since Archbishop Weisenberger has now closed the doors on traditional Catholics in his diocese, obviously all are not welcome there. Like the vindictiveness knows no bounds, Dr. Stine. That's a telltale marker, isn't it?
It is. That's why I was calling it a matter of justice. You have a right to know what it is you've done wrong when you're losing a job or when you're in danger of losing a job. Just canceling people out of the blue, especially, again, Dr. Ralph Martin's a name that isn't ever associated with controversy, other than maybe if you've got issues with like the charismatic renewal or something, then okay. But beyond that, he's not, again, as you said, he wasn't going on to his show every day talking about how bad figure X, Y, or Z are in the Roman Curia. He wasn't talking about church politics as far as I've ever heard. But he did dare to say the current teachings on marriage in the church are a little ambiguous and could be leading people astray. And I guess that's too much for the bishop of Detroit at this point.
By the way, Echeverria, I think that's how you say his name. I want to say his name correctly. Anyway, Echeverria told the Register no reason had been provided to him for his termination, and that he could not say more due to signing a non-disclosure agreement. So he signed an NDA. I didn't hear anything about Ralph Martin signing an NDA, which I think that also is interesting and telling to me. I wonder if there are severance packages involved in exchange for those NDAs. But he also not given a reason. So I have to believe there's going to be a lawsuit or something after this, maybe a canon law case. I'm not sure. Do you think they have any recourse?
I would hope they have a canonical recourse. This would be a good test to see if the direction in Rome has changed at all, to see if they have any kind of recourse canonically, because clearly their rights have been violated here. And I find the idea of an NDA in church employment bizarre. Why do you? It would be almost as weird as having a non-compete clause, right, in a contract. So an NDA, part of your term, as part of your termination process, and if they're holding hostage his any kind of benefits or anything, that's reprehensible. But then I generally hate non-disclosure agreements for most things in most cases. Short of working with state secrets or working in some area involving, something with high potential for industrial espionage or something, non-disclosure agreements seem a little much in any kind of employment, especially in church employment. That's part of what makes this whole thing stink.
Also, the responses to this, and the National Catholic Register, they pointed out Mike Lewis, a friend of your show, I'm sure. Mike Lewis is founder of the website Where Peter Is. He says he took a different approach. He says necessary and overdue. He says it was a scandal that these men were involved in the information involved in the formation of seminarians after the way they wrote and spoke about Pope Francis, wrote Lewis, who is known for his harsh criticism of those he perceives as disloyal to the late pontiff. What about being disloyal to Christ and to his church and to the revelation that he has given to the world through that church over the millennia? What about loyalty to that? It seems that Dr. Ralph Martin knew that there had to be a choice, and you got to choose wisely. I want to give a special shout out to our sponsor, iCatholicMobile.com. Support for this program comes from iCatholicMobile.com, a wireless phone service for individuals and families that provide support to Catholic media, including this station of the Cross Catholic Media Network that we're on right now. More information is available at iCatholicMobile.com. Couldn't be more grateful for their support for what we do here. My family's on the plan. You should check them out. I think you'll find them very interesting. iCatholicMobile.com. We're having a conversation with Dr. Anthony Stine from ReturnToTradition.org. It's Fridays with Stine about censored Catholic voices. We've been discussing Dr. Ralph Martin and Dr. Eduardo Echeverria, who were fired yesterday from the Sacred Heart Seminary in the Archdiocese of Detroit from Edward Weisenberger. But you brought up this story, Dr. Stine, and I want to get back to it. And that's this blog that got canceled by Google. It is now being reinstated. I want to get into the specifics of why they were canceled in the first place. Can you get into that?
Well, I sent your producer an article from Complicit Clergy that actually reproduces part of that interview, and better translation than we can get with just a simple web browser extension. But the short version is they had an interview with a Monsignor Nicola Bucks, who is a priest who worked in the Roman Curia under Benedict XVI. He's a liturgist, a theologian, among other things. And he had some hot takes in this interview about synodality and about the traditional mass and other things that should not be of any remote concern to Google at all. Right?
Right.
And yet, for whatever reason, Mason Latino, immediately after that interview was published, had their website pulled for violating the hate speech policies of Google, a blogger, which is run by Google. Amazing. And it makes you wonder because, I've talked about synodality and the Latin Mass on my YouTube channel, which is, YouTube is part of Google. And when talking about those things, I never have problems because Google doesn't actually care about that stuff. They really don't. Right. Especially not when it comes to hate speech. Like, hate speech does not come up when you're talking about the new Mass versus the old, unless you really take a left field turn somewhere. And Mason Latino, in their own articles about this, after they got their website restored, made it sound like there were some really rich people in Italy and in the Vatican pushing Google to pull their website. And that's terrifying. That's what they made it sound like.
Who do you got to know to get Google to censor somebody? It sounds like you'd have to have a pretty good connection for something like that.
You would think so. And I have links in ReturnToTradition.org to the Mason Latino reports on this. They've written a letter to the both Italian Parliament and to the European Union's Parliament to ask them about this, because the EU has some censorship laws, some things that allow for some censorship in some things, but they also take a dim view about some corporate censorship on other things, and so this could get to be a very interesting story. Somebody may have severely overstepped their bounds on this and may end up becoming a headline internationally because of it.
And this takes us back to Diane Montagne's bombshell reportage, something you and I also discussed, was in that survey that was sent out under Pope Francis to ask all the world's bishops what they were thinking about Summorum Pontificum. And we were told that the responses to that survey is what compelled Francis to act decisively. And we got Traditionis Custodes, which is why the Archbishop in Detroit decided to hammer the traditional Catholics in his archdiocese before he fired Ralph Martin, based on Traditionis Custodes. But it turns out, according to Diane Montagne's reportage, that was a lie. That, in fact, the world's bishops didn't have a problem with Summorum Pontificum, and the TLM communities weren't a nuisance and a problem, as was previously reported. This blog is tied into that story.
Correct. And you would be forgiven for thinking that this came from somewhere, that there was some order that came in from the Vatican. You could be forgiven for thinking that. But then again, why? Because Mason Latino is just an alternative news website. Now, the one thing that has got that only Mason Latino really talked about, LifeSite did a little bit in their reporting, but I've used Mason Latino fairly regularly over the last several years because they get leaks from the Vatican that with an extraordinarily high accuracy rate. They found out about Traditionis Custodes and Fiducia Supplicans, and I believe even the those so-called guidelines for the papacy in a synodal papacy, all that stuff. They got the word on way before anybody else. And last year, it became obvious that there was an attempt in the Vatican to plug the leaks. You start getting these wild stories coming out about Francis was going to do X, Y, and Z, things that didn't end up happening. Some of them pretty outlandish. For example, the most outlandish rumor that came out in the last year from the Vatican, and it was told to people who had a high track record before, was that Francis was going to appoint a coadjutor pope. And you could understand why that set the internet on fire just a little bit.
I remember.
And the problem is, yeah, you remember that story. I didn't report on it because I was like, no, this doesn't pass the sniff test, even though, strictly speaking, there's precedent in church history. During the pornocracy, several of the popes of the pornocracy, which were widely considered to be among the worst in the history of the church, actually just said, nope, this is the next pope. After I die, you don't get to choose, and named them their coadjutor when they were too ill to keep going. So it's happened, but not since like the 12th century. And so some people made videos and wrote blog posts and articles about how this was coming. And it looks like that was an attempt to plug leaks. When all you have to do is go, well, look which news outlets reported this stuff initially. And from there, you can figure out who the leak was, because all you have to do is give misinformation to certain people, and then you can trace where it goes.
Yeah. And
that's what that looked like. And I almost wonder if this is just more of that, taking a little more proactive approach, because strictly speaking, governments do have influence with the big tech companies. They have, go back to the Twitter files. If you followed the Twitter file story, you had these, Elon Musk, when he took over Twitter, started releasing the internal documents that these were the receipts of the conversations between government agencies from across the West and Twitter to censor things, everything from COVID to immigration and all sorts of other stories.
Sure.
Does it stand to reason the Vatican would have those kind of connections too? But why? Again, I can't come up. It all makes sense until you get to why. I can't figure out why they would do this, because remember, it's only like traditionalists and then like conservative Catholics who aren't traditionalists but sympathetic to us, who maybe have good taste in liturgy, but they're not with us on a lot of these other kinds of hot button issues. We're not exactly the majority in the church. Okay. But the traditional movement is growing. Every metric shows that there are more people going to the Latin Mass, and it's young people doing it for the most part. And maybe that's what they're concerned about. Again, that was why I can
big deal in that survey, wasn't it? That the young people were going to the traditional Latin Mass, and boy, did that get hammered in Traditionis Custodes.
But that's the only why I can come up with. I can't come up with another why. Because, again, what does it gain anybody to shut down a blog that talks about how questionable synodality is, and how bad Traditionis Custodes is, and how bad Fiducia Supplicans is? We are a minority in a minority. So, again, I don't understand why someone's cost-benefit analysis of this said, hey, it's actually worth our time to shut down a blog on the off chance that we'll end up, causing a firestorm of controversy that will be much bigger than the reach of this website. And that website had 1 million hits a month.
And we're back. Welcome to the after show, everyone. And if you can believe it, it is Friday once again. And Angie makes a great point here. Google or YouTube may simply react to accusations and reports without reviewing the history. She says she's been blocked from commenting on shorts because of things she commented, just because the comments got reported. It's possible that there was, at a higher level or a lower level, there was some kind of mass reporting of the blog, and Google just said, "Oh, everyone's reporting this, shut it down," type of thing. They've done that. X does this with people all the time. There are these, someone gets somebody else's dander up, and they either get bots or their friends to mass report an account. Oh, yeah. It gets locked down, YouTube, and then they come back. Yeah. So it's entirely possible that it was just something like that,
Which is what's going back to something we talked about with Dr. Stine talked about a minute ago. was just that on YouTube, this is the most frustrating part of being a content creator, is you want to play by the rules as best you can, right? But when you break one, they don't tell you what you did. It's like, like, just be specific. Tell me what exactly I did that breaks a community rule. Like, it just is so frustrating. And then every time you protest it, you click a button to protest. There's no way to like make your case. There's no way to state your argument, to give your side of the facts or the events. Instead, you just click a button, they review, then they get back to you a day later. We reviewed it, and we're right, you're wrong. Well, reviewed what? Exactly. Nothing. That was like back in the pandemic days, that was the worst, because I'd get hit all the time for talking about the shot or whatever, and just they would shut me down, put me on timeout.
You're lucky you're still here.
Right. They delete my content.
Channels at that time.
They're losing channels today, too, by the way. Lots of channels getting deleted. It's just the most like copyright and violations. You know how many false copyright claims there are out there? It's a big racket on YouTube. These false claims. I mean, and then when you use the fair use, the safe harbor method of copyright, so in other words, I take someone else's content and I play it in my show. There's a way to do that. I have the book right here behind me, sitting right over back behind me. There's a way to do that that's legal and fair. It's called the safe harbor method. And it's totally fine. It's been upheld in court in YouTube cases. And still, it happens all the time. When you use a piece of copyrighted content, they will strike your channel. They will do ad revenue share. They'll have it taken down or whatever. And you don't get really any recourse. You almost have to hire an attorney to fight them in court if you want to get anywhere with it. It's really lopsided. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. It's extraordinarily frustrating. It's why I try not to use anything from any other source except rarely. And instead of just rather go with printed words. They don't seem to care about articles, but they do.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like reaction videos is a whole genre of reaction content on YouTube. So when you react to something, it should be fair and fine, but they'll hit you for those too. It's just bizarre. Hey, Damon, good morning to you. James 16897 from sunny Romania. Good morning to you. Paul, our friend from Buffalo. Good morning. Praise be to God. Kevin is here. Good morning, Kevin. Gus is here. Good morning, Gus. You said you started seeing EWTN news clips showing bishops and lay people praying for the inmates at Alligator Alcatraz. It's all good. I did prison ministry before COVID, but to me it feels overly political. That's exactly what it is. It's just a political stunt for the most part. Honey West, good morning to you, Honey West. Praise be to God. You're on the team, and I'm glad to see it. Mike K is here. Good morning from sunny Virginia. Jane, Eileen, good morning. Mary, good morning to you. Mateus from sunny California, good morning to you. Good morning. Today is the feast day of the Apostle St. James the Greater. Ora pro nobis. Jane says, remember when the Biden administration on the way out the door did as much as they could do to push through their agenda and make it difficult for the ones they disagree with to undo it. Yeah, low key. By the way, you know what else I remember from when Obama was leaving and Trump was coming in was the Trump team complaining about the condition of the West Wing in the White House from the staff of Obama.
Mm-hmm.
They trashed the place. Low key says, after show time, now we can push the envelope. How far can we push the envelope? Hopefully not too far. I don't want to get Jake all up in a dander.
I've only got one long rant like that in me a week. So maybe if we go to a 4-day work week, I'll have more room for one because I'll be better rested.
God says you have 6 days to work, but let's go 4 days. Okay.
See, the thing is, I was thinking, why 4? Like, let's go with 3 because that's a good biblical number.
Okay, now I'm on your team.
3-day work week.
Won me.
Biblical number. One for God the Father, one for God the Son, one for God the Holy Ghost.
But why not 2?
I support the Trinitarian work week.
No, hypostatic. Let's go hypostatic here and go 2-day work week.
Come on, that's just being lazy at that point.
What?
Yeah,
Stop it.
We got to go with 3.
There is only one God. I want a 1-day work week.
There we go.
1-day work week. Oh boy! I tell you what.
Then you might get more rants from me.
I still treat Saturday as a work day, even though it's not work for work, it's work for home or whatever, but it's still a work day. You got to get stuff done on Saturdays. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Richard Corwin, good morning to you. Kathleen, good morning to you. Renex, good morning. Where are you from, Renex? Let us know. Alberto, Zena, Anthony, good morning to you. Angie, good morning to you. Helen Grace, good morning, Helen Grace. Robert Roach is here. Praise be to God. Good morning to you. Philip is here. Roxanne, good morning to you. It's concerning that Ralph Martin and John Henry Weston are both fired after 30 plus years in good standing and reporting truth about the Catholic faith. Let's go to John Henry Weston, actually. Very interesting that since LifeSite News stated that they had reinstated him, that's a tongue twister, all quiet on the Western Front. Have you heard anything, Dr. Stein, from either John Henry Weston or LifeSite News on this issue? I haven't heard anything.
Nope. Not even an article. In fact, I don't think John Henry Weston's even published an article on his website.
Exactly.
On LifeSite.
Totally quiet.
Where was the rim shot for that joke, Joe? That was a great joke.
What was the joke?
All quiet on the Western Front.
See, I didn't even say it that way. Why didn't I say it that way?
There we go.
What a missed opportunity.
That's kind of what it sounded like to me. So
I should have just shut up and yes, you're right. Of course I said it that way. Absolutely. I am brilliant. Why didn't I? I wish. I can't take credit for it. All quiet on the Western Front. I wish I had thought of that. It's Friday and I'm tired. I didn't think of it. But anyway, I find it interesting that literally he has put nothing on X, nothing on his YouTube channel. It's been really, really quiet.
I would expect a lawyer has advised him on this. Honestly, that's because you hear about lawyers and when they get into when people get into kind of employment disputes or any kind of professional dispute that could be actionable.
Yeah.
That they will be advised to just be quiet. And so it could very well be that he is maintaining prudent silence at this time.
Yeah, how do you think it's going to come out, though? So John Henry's email was leaked by Stephen Knox that said, hey, I was told from the attorney that the vote was not in keeping with the bylaws and therefore was invalid, and I am still the CEO. You need to let me back in. So that email came out. And then we hear that they, in fact, did reinstate him. So at this point, we're sort of assuming it's because they claimed the vote was invalid, but there's going to be another vote. There was supposed to be a vote on the 22nd, and we haven't heard anything. So now I would have said, they're going to meet again. They're going to vote probably the same way, and it'll just be now according to the bylaws, and it'll be official, and we'll be right back where we started. John Henry Weston will move on to his thing, and LifeSite News will move on, if they can, to their thing. But now that we haven't heard anything, and it's now 3 days later, I don't know. I'm wondering whether or not John Henry Weston is now back on the team permanently. Do you think that might be fair?
I have said from the beginning that I believe his reinstatement was going to be temporary. I honestly thought he'd be gone by now. That it would have been one meeting and then done.
Yeah.
They would have found a legal way to do it. But, maybe they saw the number of donors they lost, because there were some signs online that they lost a lot of donors.
Oh, yeah.
Including a post from somebody at LifeSite saying, thank you to the donors that stuck with us during this time, which is not the thing you usually say, right? You don't usually say things like that if things are going well, if you haven't lost a lot of donors. So it could be that they're trying to assess how to do things. Or maybe they just decided, they had a conversation behind the scenes where whatever the issues were, we heard a lot of dirty laundry that I didn't care to know about. Hence why I didn't really report on this when it happened. But maybe they worked something out behind the scenes. That would be to me, that would be for the best. LifeSite does good work, and I don't wish unemployment on the normal staff members who maybe had a personality conflict with Mr. Weston or whatever it was. Most of that's not our business. If they do good work, and it would be unfortunate if they went away.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I completely understand why people lost faith in that organization with the way things shook out.
Yeah, the way it all came down was not good. Tim H., you're risking here being censored, Tim, with this comment. This very controversial comment you've got here. You might get banned. It says, quote, Jake's right. Close
Bingo.
Quote. So that is you have violated a community rule there.
My army grows.
Jake's right. Should be Trinitarian work week.
There
3
are
days
dozens
for
of
work.
us.
3 days for personal work, chores, and 1 day for God.
There we go.
Perfect balance.
Exactly.
What? No. That sounds very Mason.
The home requires a lot of work.
Does it? Does it require? This is what you get married for, right? This is why you get married and have a bunch of kids.
Oh, okay. Good thing I'm on
They
that.
can do all that work. James says, what's the beef between Strickland and John Henry Weston? Well, if you had gone and listened to that audio, I think that would have been, and I didn't play the audio, but it would have been more revealing as to what the issues were. So they had the board in that leaked audio had a list of grievances that they had with John Henry Weston's leadership. It was never about John Henry Weston speaking out, criticizing Francis or anything else. It was about his leadership. I mean, in some ways it is, but mostly it's not. It's more about the leadership's style and decision. And also, and I would say for Bishop Strickland, it was the way in which it was reported he had treated internal employees. And then, of course, managed donations and donors. Those are the big issues. And basically, it was said that he wasn't fit to lead. And they asked him to step down. Now, they offered him a job to stay on the team. But ultimately, they wanted to separate. So we'll see how it all shakes out. We simply don't know at this point. We just don't know. Roxanne says Ralph Martin was the longtime spokesperson on EWTN, the author of many Catholic books, and worked at St. Mary's Seminary. Yeah, let me know what you guys think of the Ralph Martin story. Now, okay, Ralph Martin's 80. I don't know how I mean, was he going to work every day? I mean, at 80 years old, was he still showing up to the office every day? Or was it like 1 day a week? Or like, I don't even know. But at 80, I would hope that he would be down to a 3-day work week.
You would think that they could have just said, he's going to retire. We could just wait him out.
Yeah, it's vindictive to fire him.
You would have thought that.
I think they fired him because they wanted to punish him. I mean, think about that. So bizarre. Janice says, painful to hear Bishop Strickland. I felt for him very much. The frustration heard in his voice. Yeah, he's a straight shooter. Rick says, Ralph Martin should not have been fired. Ralph Martin should not have been fired. I would agree, Rick. I don't think he should have been either. Chesterton's jest. Ralph Martin pushed the Catholic charismatic movement for so long. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I said when I interviewed him too. I'm like, if he's complaining, you've got problems you can't agree with. Like, you've got issues that you can't pretend, you can't ignore when he's the one complaining. Like, it's not just fringe people like me, or others that are considered fringe. It's Ralph Martin, for crying out loud. Like, you need to pay attention. There's definitely smoke, and we need to see what's going on. Chastity says Scott Hahn next. You remember when Scott got in trouble? Remember that, Dr. Stein? He said something critical and then immediately had to retract it because boy, did they ever come after him.
Yep. It's amazing too. Like, when you're talking about certain figures, like the person that you cited, as being a big fan of my show, most likely, I've seen him say some nasty stuff about Scott Hahn. Scott Hahn, who is like one of the most likable people in the church.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of Scott Hahn. It would give me a moment of pause if I was, not just having a disagreement about the state of the church, but literally thinking the man was evil would be a problem for me. Right? It would mean I had gone too far down the rabbit hole. And the way that some of these people talk about him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's really unfortunate, but Scott Hahn is playing it as safe as he possibly can right now because he got himself in trouble for making a critical statement and they got wild pushback. He won't come on my show at all. I've tried several times. I used to interview him. I used to hire him. I used to work with him. And he won't come because he can't have the association. That's right. Exactly.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. Memento says. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go for it.
Memento says, Joe, do you know when we will hear the new Curia appointments? Well, we're all hoping soon, but autumn, fall, that's all we've ever heard. Do you have any insight on curial appointments out of Leo?
That's all I've heard. And the only other insight I have is expect a mixed bag.
Yeah. I'm expecting that too. We have Christian Wagner on the team on Monday. He's going to be talking a little bit about not so much the curial appointments as much as about what to expect in the encyclical. And he might also...
I'm hoping it's an AI encyclical.
You're hoping it's what?
I'm hoping it's on AI, not immigration. I'm really hoping it's not on immigration.
Well, some people are suggesting it might be on the poor because that's the encyclical started by Francis that he might finish.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I can see how an encyclical on the poor could lead to immigration and other issues that are just going to be divisive. I would personally, if it were me, I'd love to just see one on AI. Because, a lot of people have watched too many science fiction movies and are afraid of AI because they think Skynet or they think the Matrix. My fear of AI is that we're going to be essentially voluntarily enslave ourselves to it and try to live slothful lives in the long run. That's my fear, that we will destroy ourselves at the most basic human level by having machines run everything.
Remember that documentary film Wall-E that came out many years ago?
Yeah.
That's our future.
And the AI was the bad guy in that movie.
We need to come up with a term for pre-documentaries, documentaries about the future.
Pre-documentary.
When a movie comes out 20 years ago and we're like, oh wow, it's actually worse than what this movie predicted. So this was a pre-documentary.
A pre-documentary, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one of those I remember realizing was coming true was Demolition Man. That was one I realized.
Boy.
That's a good good selection.
Wow. That's so that brings back some memories.
That's so true.
Right there. Yikes. Hey, yeah. Michael says, I thought Joe McClane was Scottish or Irish, not French. What makes you think I'm French? Although, unfortunately, my son, who's big into genealogy, he has traced some of our line back to Roland, who established Normandy. So, but those are Vikings, so it's cool. It's okay. They're not actual French. They're just Vikings that live on French soil. So it's totally fine.
Someone misheard you saying fringe as French.
Fringe. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. No, not French. Scottish and Irish, yes, and Viking. Apparently, that's where I get my green eyes from. Apparently, it's from my Viking roots. Scott Hahn is brilliant. Susie, I would agree. I have benefited tremendously from Scott Hahn's work. I led an entire Bible study for our insiders based on his book, A Father Who Keeps His Promises. I think it is an essential read especially for new Catholics who don't understand sacred scripture. I think it'll give you an understanding of sacred scripture in a way that you will blow your mind. And it's so accessible and easy, and it'll change your conversations with Protestants in a big way, in the sense that you will have an understanding of sacred scripture that they could only dream of having. It's that good. It's really, really that good. Scott Hahn has been an instrument in the hand of the Holy Ghost to do amazing work. Unfortunately, he is a mainstream guy, so he has to protect his reputation and his position at Steubenville. So he's playing it very safe, and he promises never to upset the apple cart again, I guess. So pray for him. It can't be easy. It can't be easy. Norman's Rock, says Alberto. Wow. Tell that to the Anglo-Saxons, my friend. Golly gee whiz. Pfft. William the Conqueror. Alberto, William the Conqueror. Like, man, I feel bad for Robin Hood all of a sudden. He just danced on his grave like that. Lori says, when my grandson was a little Wally and I Robot were on repeat daily. Yeah, Wally. We watched that several times. Rusty.
I just like that the president of the United States was the head of some Costco type corporation in that movie.
Yeah, that was great. I like that.
And I can't remember the name of the actor who played him, but it was perfectly cast.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, that was a fun movie, actually, Wally. Speaking of fun movies, recently I watched Heads of State on Amazon Prime. Have you? I don't know if you've heard or seen this movie. It's actually quite entertaining. John Cena.
I've heard of it.
Plays the American president. Now, what's funny about this film is the premise of. Spoilers ahead. The idea is you have an American president with the prime minister of England who don't get along and are caught in a wild adventure where people are trying to kill them and they're escaping on their own to save their lives. And they're being betrayed by internal enemies. And it's a comedy. It's an action comedy. It's kind of funny because the guy who made this film, I think he's Russian. I want to say the director is Russian. So his outsider perspective of what it means to be like, say, the president of the United States was hilarious to me. And so John Cena did a great job about playing a guy who was an actor who became president, never served in the military, but was, being patriotic. And, what does it mean to be patriotic? And so there's all these caricatures of patriotism in it that I just thought was hilarious and funny. I don't know. It was very entertaining. And for the most part, there's really not a lot of objectionable content on it. But the good news is, like, you can use VidAngel filters to filter out language like blasphemies. And there was only one thing of immodesty in all of it. And that was it. So on the whole, pretty clean. But with VidAngel filters, it made it absolutely a lot easier to watch. So we watched it as a family on the filters. But it was just funny. The outsider's perspective on that. I thought it was hilarious. Anybody else seen it? Let me know. Rusty, good morning to you. The Idiocracy is now a documentary, a pre-documentary, as you say. Is that the name of it? Idiocracy? I don't know.
Seen Idiocracy?
No, I've never seen it.
What?
Go look it up. Wait, what? Okay, wow.
Wait,
wow.
It has the same Beavis and Butthead level jokes, like 5 of them, all throughout the movie. But the premise is like Mr. Average, like IQ 100, no family. He was in the army. They froze him for 6 months.
This is
as an experiment.
2006? We're talking 2006.
Except the problem is for various corruption reasons, the military base was shut down right after they froze him. And 500 years later, they found the pod in the ruins of the Fuddruckers they built over the place, I believe. And everything had gotten,
I haven't even heard that name in forever.
The average IQ in the United States, at least, had dropped to like 70 by that point. He woke up as the smartest man on the planet. The other person they froze with him was a prostitute, also with average stats, like IQ and things. They became the smartest people in the world. The people in the United States were trying to water their plants with a sports drink, Brondo. You may have heard that phrase. It's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes, right?
Yeah.
And that's the movie.
Interesting.
A lot of crude language. The guy who wrote Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill was the one who wrote that.
Mike Judge.
Oh boy. I've never seen it. I'll have to go and check it out. I'm gonna see if I can get it on filter. Doubtful, but I can try.
It's a pretty well known movie.
It's got a lot of really questionable jokes in it, but it's after, like, the president of the United States is a former adult film star and a former pro wrestler who shows up to speak to the House of Representin in his pro wrestling gear with an assault rifle.
House of
Which
Representing?
seems outlandish now, but isn't that outlandish anymore?
No, not really. Oh boy. Gus says, I remember when I was visiting my relatives in Ecuador, they'd work on Saturday, but only half the day. There you go. In the Marine Corps, we used to have to work all the time on Saturdays. I had a job in logistics where it was like mandatory to work on Saturdays as well, or at least a half a day. So it's pretty common in a lot of areas, but it can be rough if you want a personal life, a family, or anything else. Was that a Terry Crews role? Was Terry Crews? Was Terry Crews in Idiocracy?
That was Terry Crews.
Okay, Terry Crews. What's he up to?
Which is weird that he played an adult film star, actually, given that Terry Crews is one of the more outspoken opponents of pornography in Hollywood.
Against it.
Much to his credit. Yeah, he's very much against it.
Wow, I have never seen it, so wow, I guess my mind is being blown today. Yvonne, good morning to you. Thanks for being on the team today. A traditional Catholic says the prison was named House of Particular Individuals. Chesterton's Jess, good morning again. Chesty Semper Fi. Helen Grace, good morning. Merlot. Luke Wilson was the actor. Luke Wilson, is that the name of the guy in the film? Is he is he related to Owen?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Wilson? Yes,
they're brothers.
Older brother, I think.
I didn't know that.
It's funny because they're both in Royal Tenenbaums, not playing brothers.
That's wild.
I love that bit.
My mind is blown now.
They don't play brothers in Royal Tenenbaums.
I like Owen Wilson. I loved him in the movie when he was with Gene Hackman, Behind Enemy Lines or whatever. I liked that. It was great.
He was not one of his more serious movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, he's usually a Wes Anderson guy. By the way, the whole Heads of State thing steals from Wes Anderson's style in that film. There's a lot of Wes Anderson, elements in the Heads of State. I don't know if it's doing it as like a hats off to Wes or they're just blatantly stealing his style. I don't know, but it feels very Wes Anderson like. Hey, Kay Stein says Heads of State sounds like My Fellow Americans with James Garner and Jack Lemmon. Yeah, kind of.
That's my wife, by the way.
Oh, that's your wife? Oh, how cool. Hello, Kay. Mm-hmm. Good morning to you. Praise be to God. Glad to have you on the chat box over in the Facebooks. It does kind of
I was
like
trying to remember the name of that movie. I just couldn't remember the name of it, but it did remind me of that movie.
Yeah. My Fellow Americans. That was funny too. I haven't seen that in a long time. Wow. Angelique, good morning to you from the Camino de Compostela, Santiago, the Portuguese way. Again, boy, I'm really happy to hear you're going the Portuguese way. Very few people do that way, I think. It's horrible to hear about Ralph Martin and his colleagues. It is, isn't it? I would agree. Lori is here. Good morning, Lori. Don Baddick is here. Patty is here. Junior Barr is here. Good morning to you. Praise be to God. Len Pine, Gwensa, Nick, the Mike, Sci-Fi. Good morning, Sci-Fi. I saw a report today. Rochester finally settled their priest abuse scandal lawsuit. I guess it's like $246 million, I think, from what I remember correctly. So
Rochester's probably second only to Buffalo in this instance.
Oh, really? How bad is Buffalo's?
Buffalo was real bad. I can't remember the total. Let me see.
They were pretty much ground zero.
Yeah, Buffalo was among the worst. I think Buffalo had the most or close to the most cases in the nation.
That's crazy to think about, actually.
It looks like, the settlement was $150 million. So Rochester's
not as bad. Rochester's worse.
Rochester's is more, which is strange to me.
Yeah. I mean, but that doesn't even hold a candle to what Los Angeles paid out.
Yeah.
I mean, they paid out massive money. Rob is on the team. Flying Tigers. Good morning to you. Fridays with Stein. Praise Jesus. Yes. Good morning to you. Pray for Hulk Hogan.
Or was this Rochester, Minnesota?
No, I don't know. Maybe I mistook. Maybe I saw Rochester and I thought New York. I don't know. I should fact check that.
Let me take a look.
Let's go to Hulk Hogan. Were you ever a wrestling fan, Dr. Stine?
When I was like 10, I stopped watching it about the time I got into it. When I started watching pro boxing and go, this is real and this other stuff isn't, so I stopped watching wrestling. But I have fond childhood memories of Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and the rest of it. It was a kind of a weird week for celebrity deaths.
Yeah, Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there another one? I don't remember if there was.
The Malcolm Jamal Warner, who was in the Cosby Show.
That's right, Malcolm Jamal Warner from the Cosby Show. God rest his soul.
It was Rochester, New York, by the way.
Rochester, New York. Okay, it was the home of the garbage
That's
plate.
Fulton Sheen's old diocese, and the abuse cases there were one of the things they used to stop his canonization.
Yeah, which has never proceeded, by the way.
Nope, and probably never will.
Probably
he was not,
never
for
will.
political reasons. He was not popular. He was not popular among the current bishops,
especially the Americans, right? So when you have an American pope, maybe that plays a role. Howard Cosell. What about Howard Cosell, Helen Grace? Howard Cosell's been dead a while now, right? I mean, like, he didn't just die, did he? I mean, like, he died years ago, didn't he? Pretty sure he's been long dead. Hulk Hogan. Yeah, for me, when I was a kid in the 80s, it was the Von Erichs. They were like the big wrestling stars, was the Von Erichs. And then when Hulk Hogan started coming up, it was Hulk Hogan really, like, he was on that switch between like old school wrestling and then like the whole WWE and, The Rock, that whole era. Like they took the mask off. In the 80s, they still pretended to be legitimate wrestling. They didn't let on that it was all scripted or fake. It was, it was debated, but it was like they didn't let in on it. Whereas in the 90s and 2000s, it was like everybody knew it was fake. It was no longer a debate. It was just pure entertainment, and they called it sports entertainment at that point. And so then it took off, like it took off crazy. And that's when you had like the big dramatic entrances with the music and the arenas sold out in massive quantities, and you got massive personalities like The Rock and all the rest. So Hulk Hogan, he was there in the 80s, and he saw it through to all those years. So he was truly like a legend as far as that goes. So it is kind of sad to see him die.
You could compare him to Michael Jordan for his sport.
Yeah.
The kind of impact he had on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I stopped watching wrestling many years ago now. I haven't watched.
For me, it was in the 90s. Early 90s.
Anything for and not even then. I think I stopped even watching in the 90s. I don't think I watched in the 90s. I mean, I saw clips or whatever, but I never really followed it. Traditional Catholic says Jesse Ventura, Sergeant Slaughter, and the Ayatollah guy. I remember Sergeant Slaughter very well. Of course, Jesse Ventura. But I have a lot. I don't know. I thought Jesse Ventura's personal vendetta against what's his name's wife, the former Navy SEAL who was killed, like taking vengeance upon his wife in court. It was like, bro, that makes you like worse than pawn scum in my book.
Yeah,
so yeah, it's horrible. The guy's dead, and you're suing the wife. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, go back to whatever rock you crawled out from under, and go back there. Just because I'm done with you. So no more Jesse Ventura fanboying going on for me. Jeff Horn, does anyone remember Roddy? Of course, Rod Piper coming into Madison Square Garden with the NYPD pipe band.
I grew up in the one town over from where Roddy Piper was from, and he was in one of the greatest action movies of all time, They Live. Highly advise if you're going to watch that one on VidAngel if you can, because it's got some stuff in it. But
I have come to chew bubblegum and to kick the tails of things, of peoples
so to speak.
And creatures. And I am all out of bubblegum. It was classic. Man, who doesn't love Rod Piper, man? Good stuff.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite John Carpenter movie, but it's a good one.
It might be my favorite Carpenter film. I got the humor and I got what he was trying to do with Escape from LA, even though that movie's really bad. That's another one of those movies. If you go watch it now, you're like, whoa, that's a little close to home in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
He depicted in that movie the Hollywood elites had become plastic surgery monsters, which is what they look like now. Like his depiction of them is on the nose, like almost down to like Ozempic face. If you've seen Ozempic face, it's scary how and he put this out in like 95, somewhere around there.
I'm just reading through these. I saw many WWF matches at the San Francisco Cow Palace. Well, that sounds inviting, doesn't it? Let's go to the Cow Palace tonight. What do you say? And Oakland Coliseum when I was a kid. It was the best. Lots of memories. You're a Goldberg fan, Mateus? Really? Come on. How can you be a Goldberg fan? Oh, boy. WWE popularity spiked during the Attitude Era. Hogan was let go, and he went over to the WCW and became Hollywood Hogan, in which he played a heel. I remember that. He became a bad guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, buddy.
Although
crazy
he shed the heel thing at some point in WCW. But eventually he got canceled because he said some real spicy stuff. But
real spicy stuff.
I was in the last few days watching people, pass judgment and condemn the public figures who had died. Not shocked when the left did it yesterday with Hulk Hogan. They're like, "Oh, spit on his grave. He said naughty things years ago, and he was the worst thing imaginable. He was a Trump supporter, so spit on his grave." I was like, "Wow, you guys are wondering why you're losing the culture right now."
I know. Yeah. Hold on. A traditionalist Catholic says denying ICE agents communion. Who's denying ICE agents communion? Is that a story? I missed that.
That's something they've been talking about trying to do, but I don't think they could get away with that. I know they'd be causing something. Unless those new stories come out. If it is traditionalist, email me. You know where to find my email address. Send me a link if that's new. Because
could you imagine they'll give communion to abortion advocates and the Rainbow Squad, but they won't give it to an ICE agent? Like, oh my heavens! If that's the case, golly gee whiz. Don't even get me started. Timothy Parrish says, I've met Jimmy, Superfly, Snuka, Ric Flair, Sting, Dusty Rhodes, etc. I saw too many to name. My brother-in-law, Johnny, he's a massive wrestling fan. Still to this day, it's probably his favorite thing to watch is wrestling. And all these years, he's been after it, watching wrestling. I just don't follow it anymore. Haven't since I was really young. Junkyard Dog, $1 Million Man, Ric Flair, Jake the Snake, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant, of course. That goes back to my day. Back in my day, we had an Andre the Giant, which is why when we saw him in The Princess Bride, we were all like, that's the coolest thing ever. That Andre the Giant was in a movie. Poor guy, though. Could barely stand. His health was in terrible shape. He really struggled in that film. They tried to make him look as strong as possible, but it really wasn't good. His
he died not long after that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did not live for very long, unfortunately. Father Joseph Iannuzzi, I don't know who that is. Who's Father Joseph Iannuzzi? Was a wrestler in his younger days. Anybody want a peanut? I can't do it, Darren. Sorry, it's not keto friendly. I can do walnuts.
Peanuts are good. Peanuts are keto friendly. The problem is peanuts are easy to binge.
Yeah,
that's why they're not keto. That's why they're
entire poundage bags of them. Yeah, I tend to stay away from the peanuts. I tend to go with walnuts. I'll go with pecans. I like pecans. I like walnuts.
I'm not going to out the person. I'm not going to name the person who said this, but my wife and I had a good chuckle when somebody we know said, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. Do you think the hot honey that the local pizza place puts on their pizza would be good for my throat?" And like, if you just want pizza, have pizza. you don't have to justify that.
Are you sure
Honey
they weren't
is terrible?
Are you sure?
Bad for you.
Are you sure they weren't asking for like, oh, do you think like because of the spice it would be better, like type of thing?
No, you've got a cold, you've got a sore throat, so the old home remedy of having honey in a drink.
Actually, potato chips do help when you have a sore throat because of the salt.
Different than pizza.
If you need salt, I mean, just go with salt. I take in salt all the time.
I always put a little turmeric in a hot toddy when I make a hot toddy.
I like ginger turmeric tea. That is definitely one of my faves.
Yeah, ginger and turmeric go to.
They go well together.
I just
They're well
take
paired.
because I'm weird.
Almonds, Janice,
I
can't do almonds. I like almonds. I love almonds, actually. I could pound almonds. My problem with almonds, though, is they create inflammation in my joints. So there's that. But sometimes I'll sneak them in.
They're only rare. Yeah. I like cashews, but I don't like the estrogens in cashews, and I don't like that you got tons of carbs in them. 1 fiber, 7 grams of carbs after that. Like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I love a cashew as well, man. Oh, you know what's good is macadamia nuts. They're keto, very good, keto friendly, and you can have them in diced, and it adds to the flavor quite a bit in your little mixed nut option.
Here's the nut you should look for: Peely nuts. Either have 0 net carbs or 1 net carb. Are high in fat and are delicious. They're almost like butter when you chew on them.
There are a lot of nuts in academia these days.
In academia. There it is. Wow, all quiet on the Western Front guy over here chiming in.
I'm here all week, folks, but the week is over.
All week
so
long. The week is over. Yeah, that's right. What was the name
here
of that
all 4-day
nut,
weeks.
Peely, P-I-L-I.
Oh, I've heard. Oh, yeah, Peely nuts.
Peely. I got to look that. I'm looking it up right now.
You can find them on Amazon, PeelyHunters.com. They're the originators of the Peely nut.
Why does it stop it? Peely nut.
They can be kind of pricey.
Peely nut. I've never even heard of this nut. I got to look it up. P-I-L-I. P-I. Peely. All right, I'm gonna look that up.
Liz and Darren are disappointed that they were trying to make a Princess Bride reference, and it just turned into a.
What happened? Did we miss it?
Well, it was. Does anybody want a peanut?
Oh, was that?
That's from Princess Bride.
What part of Princess Bride was that in?
That's Andre the Giant. Does anybody want a peanut?
When he was rhyming.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now I remember.
No more rhymes now. I mean it.
Have fun storming the castle, boys. Is like the only thing I really remember.
Oh, come on. With you. A lot of great lines.
He's only mostly dead.
So many great lines.
He's not all the way dead. He's only mostly dead. Billy Crystal. Is he still alive, Billy Crystal?
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything from that guy in forever.
Around. Yeah, I think he's just chilling.
Really? I expect you're going to have Disney announce Monsters Incorporated 3, and he'll be in it because he's in that movie. He's in the first 2.
Yeah, they're desperate.
Because all Disney does now is make remakes and sequels. So
they're getting real desperate. Speaking of WALL-E, I was going to say that was kind of peak Pixar. Everything's been downhill since then.
Oh yeah.
When Disney
AKC, welcome back. Welcome back. No more rhymes. Now I mean it. We should maybe someday what we ought to do is like a Mystery Science 3000 like viewing of a film, like in an after show where you just put on a film and we all sit and commentate.
That would be great. That would be great.
You think YouTube would allow that? We'll call it a reaction video.
No.
Mystery Theology Theater.
No.
They wouldn't put up with it.
You'd probably get a copyright strike.
Yes.
For that.
Yep.
Maybe here's what we do.
Would you want
We could do Princess Bride. That'd be fun. We could do it on Rumble, I suppose, because they don't care about law or order or any of that stuff. So that's the wild, wild west over there. We could do it on Rumble, or what we could do is we could watch the film together. We'll react to it live, and then as soon as it's over, we delete the content. Then there's no
live streams pulled before it's live stream.
That's right. There'll be no record of it after that. Susie says, cannot wait for Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg producing family movies. I don't know. Mark Wahlberg
Mel Gibson has his hands full.
Mark
I've just
Wahlberg's
heard
family
I
films
just,
are.
between The Passion and some other projects of his that I've heard, it sounds like he's got his hands full for the next few years.
Yeah, I can't wait to see his work on Malta. That's going to be cool. I'm really excited about that. You know, what he produces on the Siege of Malta. Yes, please. I would like to see Mel Gibson's hand at that. Apparently, he's going to do it.
I want to see him make a movie about Lepanto. I want to see a big budget Battle of Lepanto film.
Yeah.
Well, if he can pull
But if
the
I- my
Malta
fear
thing
is
off,
Hollywood
this
make
would
it-
be a segue to that, which I think would be amazing.
Yeah, because it'd be essentially the sequel would be the Battle of Lepanto. And
Yeah.
you could do a sequel to that. That's the Siege of Vienna.
And then he will have built up the experience on the team with that genre, you know, to be able to pull something like that off. And that'd be really awesome. That'd be so exciting to see. Carrie Elwes.
Those stories that make Muslims look bad.
Therein lies the rub, isn't it? But that's okay. I don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
AKC 783. What's the best Carrie Elwes movie? Probably
Joe's
Princess
gonna say,
Bride.
Oh, I was going to say Joe was going to say Glory.
Probably Princess
Because
Bride.
I know Joe
usually
loves
plays-
Glory.
I've noticed he plays bad.
I do
guys
love
in
Glory.
movies.
I love Glory a lot.
Most things I've seen him in, he's playing bad guys.
Yeah, he tends to play the
Like, have you
villain.
ever seen Twister? He's the bad guy in Twister.
Yeah, I remember. But I mean, I loved Glory. I think Glory is a fantastic movie, but I don't think it's going to be the movie he's known for. He's
Correct.
known for
I think
Princess
he's
Bride.
most iconic for Princess Bride.
Yeah, I mean, so-
Honestly, I wish he'd made a serious Robin Hood movie because he would have made a great serious Robin Hood. He's funny as joke Robin Hood, but he would have made a great serious Robin Hood. He had a very Errol Flynn look to him. That's kind of who he plays
Robin Hood
in.
movie is one of those.
Yeah.
His Robin Hood would test the VidAngel limits.
Yes.
But he still has like one of the best lines in any Mel Brooks movie ever. Unlike some Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
That is
direct
very
dig
good.
at Kevin Costner.
Actually, yes.
Yep.
I forgot about that. That is fantastic.
Like
Boy,
what he should have been in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, so we could have seen Carrie Elwes Robin Hood going up against Alan Rickman, like in a serious movie. That would have been great. That would have been awesome.
Oh boy, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's
That would have been great.
Kay says I watched one pro wrestling match as a teenager, and it ruined it for me. It ruined it for my friend by pointing out every time they signaled each other.
Your friend thought it was real?
Well, I did too as a kid in the 80s.
Sure.
I thought it was real. Are you kidding me? What do you mean
That's
it's
true. That's
fake?
true.
What?
That's true.
Stop it.
Everything's fake anyway. Like
Yeah.
the NFL is rigged, the NHL is rigged, everything's rigged.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
certainly
part of the
the
reason,
NHL.
though, that so many of these guys make the jump to Hollywood now is, well,
They're
they're
used
used
to
to acting anyway.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
Yeah, they're used to that. And you're more likely to get one of those guys to do their own stunts since all they were really doing
Yep.
was doing stunt fight choreography in
Exactly.
Speedos. That's what they were doing.
Yeah. You know, I'll say this though: some of the moves that they fake in the ring are incredibly dangerous. The fact that those people
Oh, yeah.
don't
Some
get
guys are
hurt
frightened.
more often is mind blowing. Like it
Mhm.
especially like the pile driver moves. Like, you know, you're messing with someone's head and neck. Are you kidding me? It amazes
That's why
me that
Hulk
they
Hogan
aren't
had so
hurt
many
more.
surgeries later in life is because
Yeah.
those guys are steroid using bodybuilders who then go do stunts for entertainment for other people. That's what they do.
What could go
And so
wrong?
naturally, these guys' bodies are broken down by the time they
Yeah.
retire.
Yeah, what could go wrong here? Sounds like a great idea. Let's go do it. Attritional Thomas says, or Attritional Catholic says, anyone else had a relative who'd yell at the referee on the TV? Says my grandma, God rest her soul, would yell at the refs on WWF. Well, I can see that. Did she smoke too, by the way? I can almost envision like what's wrong with you? You know, that kind of thing. My grandma used to watch baseball. That was her thing. And she would yell at the refs. She would yell at the umpires for that. Alberto says, Joe, the Vikings sacked monasteries. The Normans drove out Muslim invaders and sorted out England. I think it's relative. The Vikings and Normans are the same people. They are the same. The Normans are simply Vikings who took over the north of France and wedged out for themselves a kingdom. And then they went across the pond, went across the channel there, and invaded England and took over from the Anglo-Saxons. So it's kind of relative in that, and from that perspective.
Isn't that a bit like saying that Southerners are Irish or Southerners are Scottish? Like
Southerners are Scottish.
Because you move there and then you form your own. You're the culture separated by,
So at what? Okay, so
many,
all right.
many
This
decades,
at what
centuries.
point? At what point does one stop? So all the immigrants that have come to our country in the United States have come to our country from foreign lands.
Well, America is
at what point,
America in general.
At what point do they stop being Irish immigrants, Scottish immigrants, German immigrants, Polish immigrants? And what point do they start being Americans?
But my point is that if the Normans are just the Vikings, like they're still the Normans, though. Like the Normans who came over to England were the Normans. Like it wasn't a Viking invasion. In fact,
I don't know. Vikings
because
have been
the Normans were separate from
the
the Danes, and the Danes were who the English had just finished fighting off before they went down and lost to the Normans.
It's just a separate branch of the same folk. I mean, the Vikings were also raiding the Picts.
Yeah, I'm saying we're talking about separating, decades here. Like when the Danes were fighting the Anglo-Saxons, and the Anglo-Saxons, of course, are also descended from Scandinavian tribes and Germanic tribes.
Stop with your facts.
So it's like I'm just saying, like,
stop with these.
if you're going to say the Normans were just Vikings, you should probably say, well, the Anglo-Saxons were just Germans. So
fair enough.
They weren't native Britons. I'm just saying, like, it's
fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so you just basically then made it okay for us to have a German monarch on the throne. That's what you just did. Are you proud of yourself now that you're a Hanoverian? Congratulations.
I mean, the Germans end up ruling everything anyway because they're always trying to take things over.
Poor Bonnie Bunce Charlie.
We had a Frankish
in his Vatican grave.
We had a Frankish Holy Roman Empire, and that became German in the end. So,
man, you're a German lover.
That's
all I heard. Out of all of that, all I heard was Germany.
I mean,
great.
You're speaking to a half Bavarian, so I don't know what to expect.
Well, that explains it, doesn't it? Truth comes out. Mm-hmm.
Don't you watch your fairy tale castles? Don't you watch your King Ludwig stained glass windows?
Yes, actually, I visited those castles. They're quite beautiful and amazing. But they're all 19th century.
Yeah, they're fairy tale. They have nothing to do with like old school defensive castles whatsoever.
But they're cool as all get out.
I know. That's the thing. They're cool. That's what matters. Yeah. That's the only thing that matters.
Speaking of Ludwig was drowned by his people because he bankrupted him after building all that stuff. But the very first telephone in Germany was between his fairy tale castle and across the valley to his dad's castle. Was the very first phone in Germany installed. And he recreated the Versailles on an island in Germany. I forget the lake. There's a lake there. I forget the name of it. But on an island on that lake, he rebuilt an exact replica model, just smaller scale of the Versailles. And I got to visit that too. That was super cool. But otherwise, we are, of course, Jacobites here on the show, not Hanoverians, Jake. So stop trying to justify. I don't even know where we're going with all that.
My favorite comment I saw:
Vikings hate Anglo-Saxons.
Someone on X said they were going to be they were going to become an Expos fan in the way that some people are claim that they're Jacobites. He's gonna continue being a Montreal Expos fan when it comes to baseball.
Yeah,
and compared to the Jacobites, I thought that was really funny.
Okay, you did pique my geek curiosity in the sense that at what point does an Irish, Scottish, Polish, German, whatever immigrant you like, stop becoming that and starts becoming American? In the same sense that I don't know that Rollo stopped identifying as a Viking, even though he was the founder of Normandy. I don't know that William the Conqueror thought of himself necessarily as Norman as much as Viking. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know either way. I'm just posing the thought, like, did William the Conqueror think along the same terms that we think today? That Joe McLean is an American, not a Scottish American. Do you get what I'm going with that? I mean, I think maybe we look back on history now with our lens and we kind of think about it in these terms that, oh, we're Americans, but Rollo never thought of himself as a Norman. He thought of himself as a Viking who was conquering.
Sure, but
they were raiding down through the river system into France, and they were just taking land because that's what they did.
But what did William the Conqueror think of himself as?
I don't know.
He thought of himself presumably as a Norman because the Normans came in.
Though?
Then they wanted to suppress, those who were there first, which were the Anglo-Saxons.
Did he, or was he just doing the Viking thing?
Well, how many years separate is that from Rollo?
I guess my point is I don't know that it would have mattered. That they're just doing the Viking thing. We're Vikings in Normandy. We're Vikings in England. We're Vikings in Sweden. We're Vikings. Wherever we're from, we're Vikings.
Do you think the Normans thought of themselves as Vikings when they invaded England?
Well,
invading is not a Viking thing.
Yes, it is.
No, it is.
Invading
Everyone invades.
Well, I guess you're trying to make the nuanced difference between raiding and invading. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the thing is, like, Vikings would pillage. But William the Conqueror went over and wanted to, just conquer land to take over. Like he wasn't raiding England; he was conquering England.
Speaking of Normans,
he's called William the Conqueror, not William the Raider.
Robert the Bruce, good morning to you.
Well, he should know.
A Norman king, Robert the Bruce, the Lionheart, not the Lionheart, the Braveheart. Forgive me, Reinhardt was Richard. The Braveheart, Robert the Bruce, whose heart went on crusade. Norman. William Wallace, a Norman.
Because the Normans brought French over to England. They didn't bring Scandinavian language.
Yvonne, you want me to show you my kilt? That's awfully personal, Yvonne. I don't think my wife's going to appreciate you asking about that, but okay.
Alberto says you have one on under the desk.
Do I have one under the desk? I should wear my kilt someday on the show, but you'll never see it.
We'll do it on St. Andrew's Day.
Next year, this time next year, I am scheduled to go to Scotland and England for 2 weeks, and we are definitely planning to wear the kilts there and go full tourist mode. Scottish people tend not to wear their kilts. It's not a thing that they do very often. So I will go full tourist mode for you next year. Susie says we will turn into Vikings before the show ends. Jay, Dr. Stein, what is your heritage? Besides American, obviously, you're
mostly English, some German.
English and German.
It's like 90-something%. English being a broad term that includes, some Irish and Scottish and things.
All right. So
people think I'm Jewish because my name is Stine, but my last name has been spelled since well before Ellis Island was ever a thing, the way it's spelled now. Stine. Yep. It's not Jewish. It's Anglo and German. And my first ancestors in the United States were here in 1764.
1764?
So yes, actually, that's the first Steins. There were actually ancestors of mine on the Mayflower. So, again,
wow.
Mostly English, a little bit of German.
Yeah. William the Conqueror says, traditional Catholic. William Conqueror's invasion of England was because of a dispute of succession of English throne. Yes, that's true.
Yes.
No greater way to do it than to invade. Solve that problem very fast. William Arthur is on the team. He would not have seen himself as an invader, just taking what was his by right, i.e. a Viking. The Vikings think everything is but theirs by right. So they do things like that. Before he was William the Conqueror, he was William the Slightly Pushy. I like that. Chesterton's just as good. I like that. My traditionalist says my family is German. We immigrated in the 1880s. Jawohl. English adopted the French spelling. Alberto, see what you've done. Alberto, see what you have sparked this controversy. It's going to explode on X at any moment, I'm sure. Helen
part of
Grace,
the problem
good
with
morning.
comparing too is that comparing becoming American is to anything else from world history is different because so many people have tried to define American in different ways.
How do you mean?
Compared to defining, being French or being Norman.
Well, it's interesting. I got into a conversation about this with Mark Lambert when I was hanging out with him in Tennessee. And he said to me, he goes, English folk, people from England, they just I guess they probably get sick and tired of American tourists coming over there and talking about how, my family goes back to this or that or whatever thing. And they probably just get sick and tired of us Americans talking about it. And they just don't understand. They don't understand why we're so fascinated with our roots. And I tried to explain to him from why we are, why like my family is. And I'm just like, well, it's because we come from a potpourri, the melting pot. And I think trying to understand who you are rooted in your culture or your people's culture helps you better understand who you are as a person, where you came from, who you are today. I said, we don't have that. I said, you guys seem to take it for granted because you're not at all interested in like what clan you came from or whatever. It just seems like those that are still living in the French culture, German culture, Polish or whatever it is, born and raised, that's all they've ever known, grandmas and grandpas and grandpas and grandmas and all the rest. It seems like they've taken for granted that culture, whereas Americans are like, they kind of miss that element of society. It like when you come from a melting pot, there's nothing to base that. It's like your culture, my culture, that culture, our culture, everything's invented and made up, and it all feels like cosplay.
This is it's a fairly recent issue as well, because we're dealing with the huge wave of immigration that came after 1965, sadly, compared to the waves of immigration previous to that, where you kind of just had certain focused groups, just in smaller amounts. You had waves of the Italians, the Irish, the Germans, but there was kind of a sense that you knew who and what an American was, and it was much less diluted. The melting pot thing is a very recent idea,
Okay.
Compared to defining America as being, of at least European, but usually, English, maybe English and German, kind of Germanic heritage. It's a much different definition compared to now. It's like, oh, well, America's an idea, and everyone just comes here and you assimilate to an idea. Like that's a more recent liberal, interpretation of America.
I know a lot of people who are proud to become Americans here. I have a friend, I got the pleasure of being at his swearing-in ceremony when he became a citizen. And I just remember how proud he was to become a U.S. American citizen. And I guess it kind of made me feel like, wow, I kind of take this for granted, because it's all I've ever known.
Sure.
And I should be proud to be an American. Someone should write a song like that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great
Well,
song.
again, that's the issue is what does it mean to be an American? Especially when your family, can't trace any of its history back to the stuff that made America America. Right?
I know, but for me, there's a romanticism, I suppose. If I'm being honest, it's romantic, and it's the way I think about it. There's a romanticism lost in America, and that is you come from a people that have common culture, common history, the tribe, the village, the clan. And although those were also very imperfect, they're not, when we think about them romantically, we tend to think about only the good stuff, not the bad stuff. But at the same time, there's something to that that's completely lost. I live in a neighborhood, not a village. And my neighborhood is like everybody from all over the planet, all different nationalities, different languages even. Neighbors that don't speak English, it's just, we don't celebrate the same, we don't talk the same, we don't act the same, we don't look the same, there's nothing common. We don't even worship the same.
Again, that is
from that village.
That is a more recent immigrant issue. There was a time when Americans would have felt that way about being American, coming up through the Revolutionary War, and then, depending on your view of the Civil War, but that kind of forging a new nation out of that horrible conflict between more separate, state-centered identities, region-centered identities. There was a time when that was a very strong feeling, is that was being American. You weren't a German American. You weren't looking for your heritage from back there. You were an American, especially if you were a heritage American. You were tracing your family back to the Mayflower, or at least the Revolutionary War, or to your part in the Civil War. Like if your family, if your family name wasn't found in those registers of people who fought in the Civil War, okay, are you really an American then? Can you really ever be an American? Because you're coming here after the fact and trying to join us, type of thing. You know, and when you had smaller amounts of those immigrants coming across, it felt more like, okay, well, yeah, a few of you can come in, you can do this, you can do that. And then 65 is when that changed like radically. So this is a very recent problem to have or issue to discuss, because before then, American meant something much more specific.
When you bring in 30 million immigrants into your country in a short period of time.
Yeah.
People notice the traffic is better in Los Angeles because of the deportations, including the self-deportations.
Yeah.
Like it's noticeable.
Yes.
And people just staying home.
Yeah. When we talk about America being a melting pot, like until 65, like even the biggest immigration waves were pretty small, like especially in comparison to what's happened since 65. This even the Statue of Liberty, that whole "Give me your poor starving huddled masses" poem, that wasn't originally on there. The Statue of Liberty was a symbol of the American founding, and it had absolutely nothing to do with immigration. It had everything to do with the rights of Englishmen and liberty and all these other causes. And you can have your problems with that as a Catholic, but the point is, from a cultural perspective, that was what being an American was. It had nothing to do with, a melting pot. We're an idea where we bring people from all over the world and they all come together and agree on, to sort of listen to the Constitution or something, like that wasn't what it was about. It's a very recent, thing to have.
Whoa. Alberto says your relatives went to America on the Titanic. Yikes.
Oh, no. I hope that's not serious.
Are you being joking? Are you joking about that?
I can never tell with Alberto.
That'd break my heart if your relatives died on the Titanic. That'd be horrible. Or they get saved on the boat.
Like here's the thing for you, Joe. How many people call themselves English American?
No one.
No one.
How many people call themselves?
Never heard that.
How many people call themselves German American? Maybe a few.
A few.
Some, not many.
Some, not many.
Yeah.
What you have is Irish American, Italian American, Polish American, and then now all
Scottish
kinds of Somali American. I don't know, but the thing is,
Somali American.
That's there's your that's it in a nutshell. No one calls themselves English American because you're just American. No one calls themselves Scots Irish American. No one calls themselves that.
Well,
you're American.
when John Adams and his ilk were debating this in the Continental Congress, wasn't this part of the issue? Is that who are we? Aren't we just English citizens? To break away from the mother country is to rupture your identity, is it not? I mean, they just kind of going back to what I was thinking about with Roland, who founded Normandy. I don't think he was thinking of himself as a Norman from Normandy. He was a Viking who wanted land and sort of took it and expanded his personal horizon.
I think that you're comparing apples and oranges there, though. This is a more unique situation here in America. I think this is you can't use other historical examples.
What I'm asking you to comment on specifically is John Adams, the Continental Congress, when they're debating this. Did they see themselves as something other than English citizens?
That's hard to say, to analyze personally without getting into all of their writings and their thoughts.
You went to Hamilton, for crying out loud. You should have an opinion on this.
I'm saying that they weren't. What's the word to say?
AKC's asking a tough question. Maybe you can ponder that for a second.
I wrote my doctoral dissertation on. I wrote my master's thesis rather on Jefferson's political philosophy, and guarantee you he didn't see himself as an English citizen. Not after the revolution.
Not a citizen. No.
Okay, but what about before? What I'm asking about is before the revolution.
Was a Virginian.
Yes.
Okay, so before the revolution, Jefferson was seeing himself as a Virginian. That was his identity.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, most likely.
So it was his personal pronouns were ver and gin.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. Okay,
something like that.
Got it.
Something like that. I don't think he was a virgin at the time, but
what? Hold on. I think you just said he was
based on the stories about him. But Virginian. But the
dang. Based on his relationships with slaves. Okay.
But the point is that
I love how much people give guff to Thomas Jefferson over that. When Ben Franklin was like the womanizer in chief.
Yeah, he was bad.
He loved his time in France, by the way.
That guy was a dog, man.
Yes.
Yeah, he was bad.
But
I would agree. 100%.
The distinction here that I'm talking about is that they would have had however they were defining themselves, they would have had a very narrow definition.
Okay.
So when Thomas Jefferson is calling himself a Virginian, he's he's not thinking of the Indians there being Virginians, and he's not thinking of himself. Of course, he wouldn't be thinking of himself as an English citizen once they declare independence.
I know, but I knew that, but yeah. I was wanting to get more to how did he think of himself before the revolution? That's what I was trying to get to.
It was Jefferson was a Virginian. Washington would have been one too. I mean, they thought of themselves with the state they lived in because that was the colony they were from,
and that was their colony.
Not English citizens.
Well, they
probably thought of themselves English somewhere after being a New Yorker or whatever.
Yeah, but they did. Remember, part of the debate also was about them wanting the rights of Englishmen.
Right.
There was, and not having
to my mind.
Having
I believe that they did see
England.
themselves as English citizens, but ones that wanted their cake and eat it too in some ways. I'm a Virginian, but I want to be I want all the rights.
It's a complicated story, and it's kind of unrelated to the point that I'm making about defining American.
I know, but it's related to my point that I'm trying to make about how people see themselves when they really have self-interest at heart. William the Conqueror had a self-interest. Roland had a self-interest.
Okay, I thought we were discussing the whole, the whole immigration.
We are way over our normal time.
Yes,
you got to go. Let me just read this last comment. AKC 783 says, "Do you ever feel conflicted by the deep Masonic roots in our nation's history, and that so many American values are in the syllabus of errors?" Yeah, of course, I feel that conflict. Absolutely. We've talked often about the Freemasons in this country, in this history. I was a Freemason. I've said that many times, talked about my own past there. And the founding fathers are Freemasons. Even Carrollton, Warren Carroll of Carrollton, or not Warren. Why did I say Warren? This is not the Catholic I'm looking for. The signer of the Declaration of Independence, his family also was part of the lodge. Definitely a problem. And Americanism is a heresy condemned by the Vatican. So these are all issues, and I think we should be feeling conflicted about that. There are goods and bads in every country, in every society, every political system. We must reject the bad and take the good as best we can under our circumstances.
Read Leo the 14th's encyclical about Americans.
Americanism is not believing that your country is the best. It's that you believe your country is essentially got a special mission from God to be a shining beacon for all of human history, when that's the church's job, not the secular state. Now, a country may have a specific sort of God-influenced mission at a particular point in history or something. That's his business, not your politicians. But it's perfectly fine to think your country is the best in the world. Perfectly fine. You can even be kind of annoying about it the way Americans are. But once you get to the whole, this is God's country right after Israel. And once you're there, you've got problems.
And even then, there's probably in their minds, they're probably like, okay, Israel first, then us. It's like, golly gee whiz.
As Pope Leo told us the day after he was elected, we are God's chosen people, as in the Catholic Church.
The Catholic Church. Yeah. Although I do believe we have a moral obligation to want the Jacobite cause to be resurrected. Down with the Hanoverians, up with James. Bring back the mighty Stuart line. That's what
the king over the water.
I'm descended from. Strictly speaking, I am descended from English royalty, so I do have a claim, albeit a very tenuous one, to the imperial throne of the United States. So I'm just throwing my hat in the ring.
There we go.
Promise my reign will be nasty, brutal, and short.
We'll all be Steinians. We'll all become Steinians.
The Hanoverians, the German lairds. Yeah, no, I'm a Jacobite forever.
Yeah, Hanover is in Hanover, the crown back to its rightful heirs.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, thanks for geeking out with us on this Rabbit Hole Friday. Praise be to God. We'll see you back here Monday morning with Christian Wagner. Share us with a friend. God love you.